I've been put in charge of watching you.
With the rise in popularity of the Netflix show The Watcher, I wanted to take a look to see how much of it really was based on a true story. I originally thought most of it would be fabricated, but after spending the last week filling up my laptop and desk with pages and pages of notes on this house, the true story is actually miles scarier than the show. Buckle up as we dive into the real story of 657 Boulevard Westfield, aka the house monitored by the Watcher. But how did all this begin? In 2014, a married couple named Maria and Derek Broadus, along with their 3 children, moved into a stunning house at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. The house cost $1.3 million, which was slightly higher than they had originally planned to spend, but since this was their dream home, it was perfect, and in a safe location, they were able to justify the price. From only day 3, they had decided to call in construction workers to renovate their half-completed basement. Whilst the Broadus family of 5 were moving their belongings in with the moving van, the father, Derek Broadus, checked the mailbox to see if they had received any letters. Nothing originally stood out, just mortgage providers congratulating them on their new home, a local eye opticians advertising their practice, and more generic mail advertising and leaflets. Right at the bottom of the pile though, lay a letter directed to the 2 parents. The Netflix show got the wording of the first letter quite similar to how it actually was. However, I think that the real letter that the family received had much more chilling words, knowing that it's exactly what they had to read. The first letter said,
"Dearest new neighbour at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood."
The Watcher then asked the Broaduses,
"How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you from its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I've been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out."
The Watcher then goes on to reference the Broadus' children, writing,
"Do you need to fill the house with the young blood that I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed that brought your children to me? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me."
The Watcher continued,
"Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive past 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one."
They concluded,
"Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. The Watcher."
A stalker known as the Watcher terrorized the homeowners with a series of chilling letters.
The Jersey family moved into a new home. They began receiving disturbing letters from someone who called themselves the Watcher. Now, after years of torment, that family
at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. The stately 3,900 square foot home boasting 6
The latest
bedrooms,
true
4
crime
baths,
TV hit, The
and
Watcher. Eva Pilgrim has the story behind the #1 show on Netflix right now.
Reeves Weideman is the New York Magazine writer whose article is the basis of the new
The
Netflix.
search for the elusive Watcher turned neighbor against neighbor in this idyllic town of upscale homes. Some investigators believe the Watcher must live nearby.
Unlike the Netflix show, there was only a couple of neighbours that the Broadus family suspected. The first was a family called the Langfords. They had lived in the neighbourhood since the 1960s, and the household consisted of 3 members. A 90-year-old mother, her daughter, and her son, Michael Langford, who reportedly suffered from schizophrenia. This family was the inspiration behind the neighbours in the Netflix version, named Pearl and Jasper, as Michael Langford would often be caught staring into neighbours' windows and standing in their backyards uninvited. The police weren't able to convict Michael Langford though, as there wasn't enough evidence. The second potential suspect was a vehicle suspiciously parked near 657 Boulevard for several hours with a woman at the wheel of it. She was taken into custody, and when questioned, she revealed that she might know who the Watcher is, as her boyfriend's gamertag online was named the Watcher. When they called the boyfriend, he said that he was more than happy to answer any questions in an interview, but then he failed to show up twice to appointments with the police. As he wasn't a solid suspect, the police didn't push this any further. The parents of the family, Maria and Derek Broadus, were really struggling. Derek began getting depressed and feeling unhappy in his own home. Maria's nerves went through the roof, and she couldn't stop the anxiety she felt in her new home. If the children were playing too far in their own yard, she would heavily panic and call them inside. The parents were consistently checking on the children to make sure they're safe, and as a result, not sleeping well at night, with any little sound causing them to panic. Things couldn't get much worse for the mental health, or so they thought. 2 weeks after receiving the first letter, they received their second letter from the Watcher. It said,
"Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I've been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will."
The Watcher also spoke in the second letter about the daughter's drawings she did on their enclosed porch, which was spoken to the police about a lot, as they then couldn't imagine it not being a neighbour. This was due to the close proximity you would have to be in order to see that. The letter then continued,
"If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream."
the letter read.
"Will they sleep in the attic, or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedroom facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in more. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors at 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I've been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on, and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession, and now you are too, Broadus family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I will be watching."
At this point, Derek and Maria were completely and utterly petrified of being in their own home, and they immediately got in contact with people who sold them the house. They found out that the previous owners were named John and Andrea Woods, and had lived at the house for 20 years before them. They explained to them about the terrifying letters they received, and asked John and Andrea if they had ever gotten any when living in the house. They said that in the 20 years they had never experienced any of the letters until right at the end before moving out and selling, where they too received a creepy, bone-chilling letter from the Watcher. They didn't disclose any of this information though, and only spoke about it when Maria and Derek Broadus contacted them and asked. Derek and Maria actually sued John and Andrea Woods later on, because of not disclosing this information about the letters before selling, but that's further down the line. Derek and Maria continued to research the house to try to find out what they could behind these letters. They weren't able to find out much, but could have easily stumbled across the household just 7 minutes drive away from the infamous serial killer named John List. Unlike in the Netflix show where John Graff is the murderer that lived in the house, John List lived just over 2 miles away in a similar house at 431 Hillside Avenue in Westfield. He was in an unhappy marriage, hated his wife, his son and his daughter. He murdered his family and then cut out all of the pictures that he was in. The police had no way of identifying him, and he even remarried and lived a free man for a very long time. The real John List could very well have spoken to the Broaduses, as they wouldn't have known what he looks like. He was living free for almost 20 years until he appeared on America's Most Wanted and was eventually captured. After the second letter, they decided they couldn't live in the house anymore. They moved out as quick as they possibly could and found a new, smaller place to live in until they figured out what to do. They tried to sell the property, but the news about the letters had been released. This is just like in the Netflix show, where an article came out about the house which naturally made it a popular topic for true crime and paranormal stories to be created from. The article was quite popular online, and the story had gained a lot of notoriety, but that resulted in no one wanting to live there. After 2 years of them struggling with the house, they finally found someone who wanted to rent it. They put in the contract that if they received a letter, they would be able to cancel the renting contract and move out immediately. During the time of 2014 when they first moved in, and 2016 when they finally found a renter, they were mostly not living in the house due to fear of their safety and also their children's. After those first few weeks when they left, they actually received a third letter from the Watcher, which read,
"Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you."
The Watcher knew the family had moved and was asking them where they went, and that the house was missing them. When the family who were renting the house agreed to move in, they too were anxious about the Watcher, but they knew that they could leave if they did receive a letter. The family renting did actually receive one, however they decided to stay even after this. This is quite surprising, because the letter they received was pretty sinister. The Watcher was angry because before the family rented, the Broaduses had tried to sell to a home developer whose plan was to tear down the property and split it into 2 lots. This proposal was rejected by the neighbourhood planning board, and it infuriated the Watcher that they even tried to make this happen. When the family moved into renting the property, the sinister letter they received said the following:
657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the Boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher.
The Watcher then wrote directing the Broaduses even more directly. It wrote,
To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me. One of the so-called neighbours who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you know and you are too scared to tell anyone. That's a good move. Maybe in a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die, planes and cars and bicycles crash, bones break. You are despised by the house, and the Watcher has won.
Just like in the Netflix series, the parents did hire a personal investigator to try to figure out who the Watcher was. However, they had no luck with this, and they only came up with theories.
This morning, we know the family has finally gotten rid of it by taking a major financial loss.
In 2019, the Broaduses finally found a buyer for their house, but this was only when they advertised their house at $900,000. They took a loss of $400,000, but didn't care as they just wanted their family to be safe. Who do you think the Watcher could be? Let me know down in the comments, and if you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe with notifications on to never miss any horror content. Until next time, horror lovers, peace.